Test.
How loud will you speak?
Well, that's probably the loudest I'll get if I get mad about something.
Hi guys, it's David here, and today we are going to be reviewing the Will and Grace revival premiere, and I've got my friend Foster with me.
Hey, I'm back.
For those of you guys who remember Foster from the RuPaul's Drag Race reviews, we often have quite juxtaposing...
Complimentary?
Complimentary, yeah. It depends on your point of view. But the glass is either half empty, half full. It's half something.
It's half empty.
So I guess to preface this, let's each talk about our experiences with Will and Grace. So Foster, what was your relationship with Will and Grace as a TV show?
I would not say that I was really a fan. I didn't have that much of an interaction with this show. You know, I was a young, closeted person for most of the time that this was on the air. I can say it definitely had social impacts, you know, but I didn't really follow the show.
Fair enough. I was obsessed with the show.
Yeah, you really liked this show.
I wasn't a huge fan of sitcoms, but growing up, there was just something about Will and Grace and the theatrics of it that really captured me. So I definitely just was excited to see my favorite characters on TV again. We engaged in some heated discussions in the weeks leading up to this revival, really.
We did talk about this a bit. We have made a lot more social progress as far as visibility for queer people outside of just, you know, affluent white gay people in New York City. And some of the jokes really did not age, looking back at them, that well. So I was worried about the show.
I mean, that's not unique to Will and Grace to have these typical sitcom one-liners, set up joke, laugh track. It was more the physical comedy aspect that I hoped would live on in this revived season. Do you want to dig into this episode?
Sure.
Specifics now?
Sure, yeah.
This episode is a very political pilot to this new season.
I feel like they didn't really have any choice. Really not to address the time that we're in right now was... you can't do it.
What even spurred on the revival was their episode about the election and part of Hillary's campaign. So just having that as the genesis for this, it was very expected for them to at least say something about Trump as president.
Well, although they did not say Trump at all throughout the episode.
Yeah, you told me that. And I didn't notice at all, but yeah, apparently it was he who must not be named for the duration.
Well, if you'll remember, a few months ago, there was this period of time where everyone was saying 45, and they were being very J.K. Rowling about this. And it seems like the script is of that time, maybe, a few months ago.
Yeah, this was a very hasty production, and I think they tried their best to get it out in a timely manner, but even with, you know, probably a couple months since it's been shot, there are already some jokes that seem a little bit dated already.
That's no fault of theirs, though. The news cycles now just go so fast that there's no way. You have to be very good at political humor to do this in a way that feels relevant. And I think part of it, too, is just that the writing staff and the cast are in their 50s. And so politics aside, I think when they try and speak too much about contemporary culture, yeah, that in particular really set me off.
It did, but at the same time, it's so Grace. If any character were going to say it, it would be Grace, because there have been multiple times where she's kind of behind.
Yeah, well, no. It's not that it's behind. I think it just kind of revealed to me that they were trying to keep too much of the old formula, and still think that these characters can say the same kinds of things. And Grace's character, being played by a 50-something-year-old actress, doesn't seem to have the same kind of cultural currency as her saying things of the time in the 90s. I was willing to give them a pass because they all have aged relatively well, but once they're talking and acting, you can really see how much these characters have aged. And so I think the writing staff should be open to writing them in a way that's kind of more appropriate to who these actors are.
Yeah.
That's believable.
That's fair. They all did seem to be kind of finding their way through this first episode. I think that Debra Messing specifically felt rather forced in certain scenes, more so than Megan Mullally. It's she never had a day off. It's a lot of pressure to revive the show after 11 years. But yeah, so getting into the plot, they started off within the first minute and a half, just kind of totally retconning the entire finale and all of season 8 essentially. This was very publicized leading up to this episode. We all knew that they were going to ignore the ending of the series where they have kids and those kids are supposedly they get together or whatever. A lot of people didn't like that, and it would have been hard to write around. So it was right for them to get rid of that premise, but I noticed they give Grace a whole backstory of she's going through a divorce, whatever, and with Will, it's like, yeah, Vince is gone, he's single, but they don't give any kind of plot-driven backstory. Like, did he go through a divorce?
Maybe this is just cutting room floor, because I can see this writing staff definitely taking the expected position that gay relationships end quickly, and whether that's fair or not, this show seems steeped in these gay characters do things that all gay men do, because this is just what gay men do.
Yeah, fair
and
enough.
So I feel like maybe that was kind of the decision there, but they just didn't have time to say anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, it also just could have gotten cut in post. Like, I mean, there was the Karen Fox News line on the train, which,
Is that just from a different episode, though?
I think that's from the train ride where she and Grace are going to D.C. because she says the train leaves at 10:30, and all of the jokes that were in teasers for this season came from this episode.
You do think so?
Well, I mean, that was the only one that wasn't in this episode that was in the teaser.
Maybe they knew that they were going to use that soundbite so much that it was going to get annoying, because it got annoying. So much of the political discussion in this episode felt like very heavy and forced, and it didn't really have anything to say.
It was like
about
part
gay
2
people?
of their election episode.
Well, no. Let me really go into this, though, because this is what I felt the most about the episode, is that the politics that they did want to talk about. Will is flirting with a Republican senator, and Grace compromises her opposition to Trump and agrees to work for him. That could have been the plot, but in a way that makes that feel more overtly bad.
Mm-hmm. But
it's fine to have flawed characters, or even to poke fun at the fact that affluent white people really do things like this, but they didn't do that. And so it was very uncomfortable for me, a lot of that. Because, I mean, even Grace's dialogue about using her pussy hat to sneak candy into the movie theater, that's the issue. 53% of white women voted for Trump, and then they all showed up to this thing, but then what are they doing now? Nothing. They're enabling this. And
it's a little bit Tina Fey SNL.
It's the sheet caking thing again.
Yeah.
That's kind of my issue. They both compromise themselves, and they catch each other and get mad about it, and they have this ridiculous pillow fight.
With a lot of CGI feathers. I don't know if you caught the very obviously CGI feathers.
Well, yeah, it was not.
Why? That looked like it would have been 2006 CGI. They could have invested.
It might have been 1999 CGI or whatever from their
Just
very first
why?
season.
Is it supposed to have that sitcom look? I don't understand.
There was no resolution of it, though.
Yeah,
at the end, they just kind of apologize for getting mad at each other, but neither of them owns up in any way for being shitty and selling out their own.
He says a little bit
politics.
Will said something along the lines of, when you see me as this morally larger person, it makes me believe I can be that, or it makes me want to be that, or whatever. So, I guess that's their little... It's just in a 21-minute sitcom.
Yeah,
it's hard to...
I kind of tuned out at that, because that's the sappy denouement part of a sitcom that no one needs to listen to, because it's all content-free, Oprah-isms, just feel-good nonsense.
I mean, taking on this kind of a topic, and it not even being a two-parter, is... I'm just hoping that now they can move away from that, because I don't think that there would have been any right way that Will and Grace in this format could have tackled this in a 21-minute episode.
Even real commentary on the lives of gay men now would be fine, because again, I'm not the biggest connoisseur of the original show, but I feel like a lot of the commentary on gay life then was kind of surface level and not really probably all that accurate. Would you agree with that, or?
I mean, I was not a grown gay man in the 90s, so I don't know.
Well, I guess just my idea of it is that they had these two gay characters, and neither of them were really... They were both oddly kind of celibate most of the time, or they were dating somebody, but nothing ever really happened.
Yeah, the problem wasn't that they weren't doing anything, it was that every kind of relationship that they engaged in happened mostly off screen. So whereas Grace got to have a lot of her on-camera romances, Will, it was just always kind of oh, okay,
just throwaway dialogue, whatever. Oh yeah, him.
So I'm hoping that, I mean, that's one thing that I think they will try to improve upon. There were little things. So the Secret Service people, when he says goodbye and the line of Secret Service people runs by Jack, there's Jack and Karen, the female Secret Service person checks out Karen real quick. which I think is like a nice little example. Yeah, it's very subtle. In the world of this episode of Will and Grace, they're in agreement that all the Secret Service people are gay. And this then exhibits itself in the female Secret Service worker checking on Karen. And it's like something that is, you know, it's not a big line, it's not a big laugh, it's just like everyone being in agreement about this larger-than-life world, which is what I love about Will and Grace. So like things like that give me hope that they still know what makes the show special, but it's like such a small thing, and it literally could have just been the actress making a choice. Maybe. I mean, even like the little thing with Jack and the Secret Service guy, and like they have the little kiss, like they're I think giving little winks to the fact that there will be more on-screen gay stuff.
Yeah. In a way, it feels like very like 1998 pandering to gay people, but in a slightly better way than they would have done it then. Which is not really that much, but I'll get whatever.
We'll see. I really want to have hopes. Because I was somewhat let down by this first episode. Maybe they're settling in. The actors are. Also, the camera people seemed to be settling in. It was shot more like their live episodes in season 8 than a fully completed episode. There were like little camera nudges in there and just little stuff. But I'm hoping that it develops.
A lot of the issue that I take with certain people's criticism of the show is that they don't like the idea of Jack as like a gay stereotype, which I do not agree with, actually. Like,
yeah, I think that Jack is just Jack. Like he's his own.
He's not that anymore.
Yeah, right. I think of him as just like he is a caricature, but they're all caricatures, and it's just like he's Jack. He's not supposed to be some stereotype of all gay men.
What I have my eye on is to see if he is allowed to have like a real romantic or sexual life in any way outside of a setup of a joke, like with any kind of continuity episode to episode. Because that I think is important.
I didn't love his spiel about the different businesses he had been a part of.
Yeah, I hated this. His character, the whole thing throughout those episodes in the past, he would just have like this job this day, and then he'd have this job that day, and he's doing random whatever. And to give this much context, like grounding into what his character does, makes no sense because they never had any grounding in what he's been doing or where he is now and then. The whole thing is that it's a joke, right? So.
Well, I mean, I think that in this moment, this was more an opportunity for them to like showcase his physical comedy through like exposition. But
it wasn't that funny.
Yeah, exactly.
The orange balls or whatever. It wasn't funny.
And it's a shame because like, you know, he's basically showing the audience like, look, I can still do all these things with my body even though I'm older.
He's 50. And, he can kick and stretch and kick.
Exactly. And so like for that, it's like, all right, good. Now write some good jokes that involve that, and I will laugh.
I'm open for the show to grow, but there just like weren't really that many jokes, period. It's not even whether they were good or not. The episode was just like very light on jokes.
And the laugh track was loud. That was like one technical aspect that I wasn't, because the original show did not have a laugh track that was that. It sounded like the levels weren't balanced, and so you had these jokes which were like meh, and then this like uproarious laughter, especially in a time where most audiences are, you know, getting over the laugh track in a format in general. To pump it up that loud is just like, all right, I hope that in the next episode they've figured out these little technical quirks.
See, I think that's actually what it is, because like the main audience for sitcoms now are these baby boomers who are like getting real old and like starting to lose their hearing and stuff. So they need the laugh track to be louder to tell them to laugh, because like young people aren't watching sitcoms. I'm sorry. The sitcom itself is kind of irrelevant.
People watch Big Bang Theory and How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. That's the key problem. Like what keeps Big Bang Theory alive, I think, is like baby boomers and Republicans.
There are young people who watch the Big Bang Theory.
I don't know any.
I know one.
It's bad.
But he's not
a bad TV. How I Met Your Mother.
He's a young, liberal, nice human who just happens to like the Big Bang Theory.
The person that you know who likes Big Bang Theory? I don't believe it. And maybe focusing a lot on like the cultural impacts of this show and the potential like opportunities it has to be political or to have an influence just because of the political role that it does have. And I think it was kind of accidental in a way. Like Joe Biden, when he made his public announcement in support of marriage equality that was directly responsible for pushing Obama in that direction, which led to marriage equality, he cited this show as doing more for gay rights than anything else, which is somewhat absurd on its face. But you cannot understate the importance that had it touched him at least, and he pulled the president in a way, which was great. But marriage equality, again, is a really good center on which to address this show, because this show seems to be about and for the people who benefited from marriage equality. And there are a lot of other people in the greater queer community who are not immediately addressed. My hope now is that the show uses that political relevance that it has inherited and pushes us for more progress, or at least against the political climate that's trying to bring us backward. I would have rather a totally apolitical episode, and I would still complain about it, but I would have rather that in some ways than an episode that just enables this idea that like wealthy white gay men have no responsibility to the greater rights of the queer community, and that if they're fine squaring it, just like dating some awful Republican guy, that it's cool for them. Like that's not the message that we should send, especially because that's most of who's excited about the show and who's watching it. And so those people especially should be encouraged and reinforced to stand for all of us, you know, because we depend on them.
Yeah, I think that Will probably could have had a greater punishment for his action. Like, there could have been more of a... In the resolution, there could have been a little bit more weight, rather than it just being, like, getting called out by Grace because whatever. There is hope they'll introduce new characters that are more representative of, like, the entire queer community. We do have Tony, who is, I don't think he's queer.
I don't think
but he's also, like, not white, which is nice.
Important, yes.
And it was very heavy-handed, his little cameo moment, which, you know, was not relevant to the episode at all. I feel like that was an insert from a later episode. I think that it didn't, maybe it replaced the Fox News scene, but they wanted to show, like, hey, we're introducing new characters, there'll be people of color, like, here you go.
And I'm glad you circled back there, because I think it's important, especially because what's her name, Rosario, the maid, is not present in this revival of the show. The actor couldn't return.
Yeah, she had, like, health stuff.
But I think it was especially important, and I'm glad they're not that, like, blind to reality now, that they would just write out their, like, one non-white character in the Trump regime, and that would just be okay, and we're not going to address it. That would...
To a certain extent, they were probably covering their own ass by having him in this episode. And, like, let's hope the story...
it did feel a lot like that, because he did basically nothing.
It was interesting, though, like, Grace asking him, does Karen ever make you feel uncomfortable? Like, if she ever says anything, let me know. It was basically talking to, like, the yous in the audience, like, listen, we know that you have issues with, but we'll get there.
I guess, but at the same time, it felt stupid, because, like, we all know. You know this too, Grace.
Right.
Like, we don't need to ask each other anymore, like, are you weirded out by these extremely conservative people who feel they have power to say whatever the fuck they want now? Because we all are.
It speaks to the show that, like, they've gotten basically the entire original team on board, and I know that they've been, you know, very outspoken about that. They're proud of that aspect, and now it's just a matter of, like, taking the value that comes with that, as opposed to putting the entire original team in positions that don't really showcase the advantages.
You talk so much about the physical comedy of this show. The only real physical jokes were Jack doing his thing, but Grace's 2 spit takes, and I hated both of these.
Oh wait, no, I love the spit takes. I am all about spit takes. I think the show always gets spit takes right.
Spit takes aren't funny.
The first one...
Spit takes aren't funny in the same way that, like, sitcoms aren't funny.
Well then, girl, why are you watching? No.
Because you told me to.
I will say the first spit take would have, I mean, that surely would have completely destroyed Will's MacBook. I have a couple times had issues with water damage on the MacBook, and that repair is not covered by Apple Care, and it is very expensive.
Put them on blast, bro.
So listen, Grace, don't spit on Will's computer.
Listen, Apple.
I mean, it's true. The second I saw that, the first thing I thought was like, oh my god, it's computer! Because it's like it's literally on the keyboard. Really, like, the second one I liked, on the window. Takes. I thought that was funny.
Nah.
They had to do spit take.
I do want to comment that this show seems to have captured a large segment of interest within, like, the gay community, at least.
It was a really special show for a lot of people, like, in their youth.
Yeah, okay.
So I think a lot of people just...
And I don't want to discredit that.
Yeah.
I don't have that connection with it, but I'm glad that other people are able to have felt like buoyed by it in like a dark time, you know, like the Bush administration, or they were 13 and they were in some small town and this show made them feel some type of way, and that's great.
Sure.
I hope that we can expect to hold the show to the standard of everything else now, and that we can continue to use a show like this as an opportunity for today's youth to feel that same sense of encouragement, and frankly, a lot more.
The sun is setting. We're fading into darkness. But before we wrap this up, I do have to mention one little thing that I forgot, which was a glaring continuity error. When Will is talking to Jack about the senator and how handsome or whatever he is, he grabs Jack's hands, and then in the reverse shot, immediately, they're not holding hands anymore. And I know this is such a little nitpicky thing, but I noticed it immediately, and it's very visible. It's not like, you know, her hair is like in front of her, behind her, whatever. He like, you know, he completes the action, they're holding hands, and then on the reverse shot, they're not holding hands anymore. And like, I liked that choice. I thought that it really, you know, it was a moment of real friendship between them, and I would have liked to see it matched on the reverse shot.
I didn't remember that continuity.
Just a little thing. Anyway, I do like the amount of like Jack-Will camaraderie that there is. They've clearly like developed and like kept that development, and now they're not like getting at each other too much. So yeah, but that's all I've got.
I think that's all I have too. You know, it was interesting watching it, and going back and watching old episodes too. So if you're excited about this show, don't
let Foster take that away from you.
Yeah, don't, seriously. This is not to, you know, take away your ability to have fun. I hope maybe I can, you know, present a different way of looking at things.
Yeah. Please leave your comments in the section below, and yeah, let us know what you thought. If you were a fan of the show and a little let down, or you were like, you got everything you wanted, or you hated it.
Or like what you hope that it'll do now in this new iteration.
Yes, exactly. Your hopes and dreams for the future revived season.
I don't hope or dream about this show, but you can...
But maybe someone out there does.
But that's for you to do.
So leave a comment and thumbs it up.
Do you want to have like a different uplifting moment at the end instead of that?
No, I love it. So I thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you very soon. Okay, bye.
Bye.
There's my heart. Oh, there's my heart. Oh, now everybody seems to be just fine, circling a line, but I just want somebody to call mine, a little romantic with candles on the side, hearing you giggle, heavily breathe down your spine. Now I've gone through the chapters, the pages, and the scenes, but nobody ever completing this thing.